Hello my friends. Had a really good question on my latest video come up, and it's centered around Haru, and more specifically, if Summer Moko, sorry, I almost confused the names there, is actually necessary for Summer Haru, kind of like when we say like a Vino is necessary for Queen. And I really wanted to dive into the numbers because a couple things. One, Haru actually had adjustments not too far ago in the other servers that kind of reduced some of her requirements on having Summer Moko in terms of her what we call effective hit rate on other servers or ailment accuracy on the global server. And then the other part of it is there's a speculation going around on the banner release schedule, and that potentially the summer units will be at the same time for global. Now that's unconfirmed. It could just be that they're going to change the numbering system of the patches, but it also could happen. I mean, a lot of things have been different in global so far. And so if that were to occur and they didn't properly adjust for enough gems or whatever to do pulls, well, then you might be in a situation where you really have to decide if you want to get her. And so now you're left with, well, I don't have time to save for her as much as I did before, but I might want her because I hear that she's good for Haru. You know, it's this kind of like weird dichotomy that you're stuck in. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about what it is that she brings to Haru, what it is that she kind of brings on her own rights, and whether or not you ultimately really need to get her, and how do you build Haru otherwise? So a few questions really to get through. So like and sub the video, please help me get to that 10K. Especially because once I do, I'm going to open up the Discord to everybody who's not a member, and let's just get into it. So I'm actually going to come off the game for just a minute. I'm going to switch over to lufel.net. Again, I'm always going to rep the site because they are really, really cool. They have so many good resources. But let's actually go to Haru first. And if I pop over here, what is it that she needs and what is it that we care about? And what's really neat is they give you some stat breakdowns and things within this website. And so what they're recommending is that you get to an ailment accuracy of 150. Cool. Well, why do you need that? Like, who cares? Well, if you come down through her different powers and effects, there's her passive right here, which is kind of what's driving this. And so it's got two parts. The first one says for every 1.45 ailment accuracy rate, gains 1% attack bonus up to 165%. Well, if you multiply that out, it's a little bit shy of 240, so it's 239.25 would be the ailment accuracy that you need to fully max out this 165%. It's a ton. The other part, which is arguably more interesting, is for every 50 ailment accuracy rate, gain 1 stack of crit multiplier plus 20 up to 3 stacks. So this here, to get the 3 stacks, you need 150 of this ailment accuracy, which is why I would assume that lufel.net is recommending it up here. And that's the part that you're really trying to get to with Haru. It's not that this other part is bad. It's actually very good, but it's incredibly difficult to get this all the way to the roughly 240 that you need to get to. And you're not going to be able to get to that with just Haru and her cards and like weapons and stuff like that. So it's really the second part that we're focusing on. Otherwise, she's DPS. She's going to work off of DPS type things like crit rate, crit damage, etc., and attack, of course. So this is really, I would say, the main part of what's driving the first thing, which is effective hit rate or ailment accuracy. Cool. Now that you know that, what does that have to do with our friend Summer Moko? Summer Moko, in particular in her skill 2, gives you 58.6% ailment accuracy. She gives you a ton. So if you're struggling getting to the 150, or if you're even getting to the 150 and you want to push that secondary effect, this is a big way to kind of get into that, to chunk that up. On top of the fact that she's doing other things as well. So she's also, this move would give a heal, it increases attack and damage dealt. So it's giving like other benefits as well, but specific to Haru, it's giving her that effective hit rate. Well, it would give it to anybody, not just Haru. And then, yeah, like I said, damage dealt is always is a plus. And a lot of what you do with her is you run skill 2 and then skill 3. And then skill 3 is going to increase damage taken on the enemy by 19.5%. So she is really there to buff people that need effective hit rate. Mesa comes to mind. He's another one that can benefit from this. And she has other things in her kit, but specifically this 58.6 is what we're talking about. So now let me go into my KR account and I want to show you, let me load it here. I want to show you what my Haru looks like And I'll show you kind of two ways that I have her. So the first is, let me get her. I have her with her 5-star. Her 5-star weapon is going to help that ailment accuracy. Sorry, let this thing load up here. And it's so pretty. That's a pretty weapon. And so it's giving me 36% effective hit rate or ailment accuracy. You're going to hear me call it both during this video. Just, sorry. it's just going to happen. So you're getting a really good buff on her effective hit rate. And then if you were to happen to go for all sorts of duplicates, you can get it as high as 69%. I'm not going to recommend you go for duplicates on her weapon, to be honest with you. But just so you're aware that it would go up if you had them, if you were wailing out over here. So her weapon's helping close the gap. And then her cards is ultimately where you find the rest of the gap. Now, a couple things to note. I actually used a couple of, it's like an event thing to create cards to get some of her cards. And then I don't have perfect cards. The top card up here for me does not have effective hit rate. And I tried re-rolling a few of these today before the video and I just never could land on it. And that's the first kind of point I want to make is there is a lot of RNG to getting her to that 150. And if you're not going to run a Summer Moko with her, your goal flat out is to get to 150% effective hit rate. That is what you're targeting. So you want to make sure that your cards are helping supply that. But you'll see here my first one doesn't. My second card, I've got effective hit rate. I probably burned 12 to 15 of these reroll cards today just trying to get rolls into effective hit rate. And you can see like here I got to 2 rolls, so it's about 10%. This card here I got 3 rolls, which is really good. Like I'm not going to test my luck here any further. Now this card is interesting. This is not the card I had equipped earlier, and I'm going to tell you why in just a few minutes. But oops, no. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. But on this card, the one I'm using for the sake of the video at the moment is a effective hit rate or ailment accuracy for the main stat. You can get this on the star card, and it's 37.6%. So this is going to be one of your better ones. And then finally, my last card, you can see I got a double roll here. So you saw all the places I got effective hit rate. Now let me show you my actual stats. That only gets me to 140. So even with burning resources, doing a custom card where I'm forcing it to be effective hit rate, I still only got to 140. Now the way that I would close this gap in all practicality is I would be farming out a new universe card on the top that has effective hit rate. So I would be sitting in whatever content I need to get this and then using, your in-game currencies to buy more cards. I'm actually out of stock on the item you get that goes into your bag that you can get these, but that would be where I close the gap from. Or I could try to re-roll a couple more of these, but that's really just playing a dangerous game of then not getting anything at all. So it is possible to get to the 150. It's not free. You do have to play a little bit of the random game. And yes, if I look over here, I've got this top part filled out for her. There's not effective hit rate over here. So I can't come in here and get like an extra 10% effective crit rate. So for her, it's really going to come down to if you don't have Summer Moko, you're going to need her weapon. So get her 5-star weapon and then really focus down getting your cards so that you have enough EHR to get to 150 right here. That is what you need to do, because then you're getting that 30% bonus to crit damage. So what if you have Summer Moko? Because again, we can play this different ways. Well, now you have to decide if you want to focus more into offensive stats that are not effective hit rate, basically sacrificing some attack. And that's originally how I had mine built. So if I were to go into her card set, somewhere up here, it's this one, I think, you're going to see I have a crit damage one. It still had a little EHR on it, but I basically said, well, if Summer Moko is going to close the gap for me, well, now I can focus on the critical damage. So this is what I would normally run on her. Now, again, these are not perfect cards. I would love for this to be, a crit rate instead of HP, for example. But this is a way that once you have enough, you can go for different stats. And it's all going to be a balancing act when it comes to it. So now let me go. So actually, let me show you. We'll just do it in battle. I'll go into a battle now that you see that I took that effective hit rate card off, and I'll show you how that buff would apply into me. All right, so here we are in battle, and this is with my crit damage card, not my EHR card. And so if I go to the stats, you're going to see that I'm at 112. And then what I'm using Summer Moko for when I'm using this particular card is for the skill 2, and this is going to push me over into that 150 plus range. So, you know, she just cast her skill, and this is something you want to keep on her. And now, as I swap over, you're going to see I'm at 170. So I've crossed that 150, and I was able to give myself a little bit more crit damage through the card by doing so. But I'm deliberately sacrificing some of that attack boost that I would get by having even higher EHR. So it's a choice that I'm making here to get more crit damage. If I was running the EHR card, I would have less crit damage, but I would have more attack. So it's always kind of trial and error. I mean, you could probably do the actual damage calculations and figure out exactly which one is better, but this works out fine. And just, I mean, from a power perspective, just so you're aware, like, it's not really going to matter right now. In something like this, I'm just going to one-shot everything with her. So a little more attack versus a little more crit damage doesn't matter. It's when you get to like guild bosses. So that is kind of how I can use Summer Moko to bridge the gap. And again, lots more refinement I could do for the cards. So the next question then is, well, what else does Summer Moko give me that makes her worth just pulling as a character, not just for Haru? All right, so to show you what Summer Moko is doing, I've loaded up a fight that is absolutely not the fight for them. This is not a Psy fight, but whatever. It's just going to kind of show you what's going on. And we're going to run this out kind of like a normal fight and talk a bit about what she gives to your team otherwise. So clearly she's there, like we talked about, for the EHR part. So the ailment accuracy. And her point is to buff people that need that. So your Haru, your Mesa. I'd have to sit back and think if there's anybody else that needs the EHR buff. But then she is also a sustain unit. So on top of the fact that she's given you various buffs that help you offensively, she also does a couple cool things in her follow-up attack. So you'll see it here in a second, but it's basically a firework attack. And what it does is it'll launch the enemies in the air. It's going to do a little bit of damage. It's not anything crazy. I think it's 19% of her attack. So you'd build her into attack. And yeah, here we go. So it did that. And then you see it also healed me. So she healed me, she attacked the enemy, and then I'll show you something else here once it actually allows me into the debuffs. But it's also going to put a 1-turn debuff on the enemy, and that debuff is going to decrease their damage by 30% for 1 turn. So I want to say, oh, you know what, I think they just used it because they just went through their turn. But effectively, yeah, if you read it from her A0, I'll just read it off of lufel.net. For every 3 stacks of flame, which is what causes her special effect, removed from the enemy, she deals 19% of attack as side damage to all enemies, reduces their damage dealt by 30% for 1 turn. Additionally, all allies restore 9% of attack plus 900 HP once based on the number of stacks removed in 1 trigger. Damage and healing can occur up to 5 times. This damage does not trigger the skill's flame effect, though. The damage of the additional effect varies depending on the number of enemies on the field. 150%, 120, or 100 when there are 1, 2, or 3 enemies. Basically, you want to use her in AoE as much as you can anyways. This additional effect does not inflict down value damage. So the point I was trying to get to is that it's going to give this 30% damage decrease from the enemy. And so you're getting to a situation where she's not just there to give you one specific buff. She also can become your sustain unit in whatever fight that you bring her in. Now, is it as big of a heal as Minami? No. But when you're getting it constantly, it starts to matter less because you're not needing to necessarily throw a big heal every single turn when you have her around. And you're just going to have to kind of play the different teams and figure out, oh my God, did she just wipe most of his stuff? I was not expecting that. So she is giving you more than just the buff. So let's get out of this fight. I'm actually going to jump back to lufel.net here for a second. And let's kind of answer once and for all, do you need Summer Moko? No, you don't. She's good. She's not game breaking. She's not another Cord. She's not a future Berry or, Summer Minami or something like that. But she's still good. The thing with her is she is mostly useful in like a Haru team or a Mesa Bleed team. Those are places where she can really use her EHR or ailment accuracy to help somebody. And otherwise, I would say she is a nice to have. I like to use her. I find that her sustain works well when I want to use it. And obviously, I'm a big proponent of the bring her to your Haru team. But you truthfully don't have to have her. She just makes life that much easier. The big thing you just want to remember is if you're not going to pull for her, and that's all right, then when you get Haru, first of all, get her weapon. You're going to want to have the 36% ailment accuracy increase that comes from the weapon. It's not going to be easy to close your gap to 150. You saw my cards. That's with rerolls. That's with even using a special item we get later that lets you pick your main stat for my star card. It's with all of that and trying to customize a card specifically to get to 150. And I still fell short. I was like, 4 or 5 points short once I walked into the battle. And so this can happen. You can get there. It's not the easiest thing though. So just understand that if you want to run your Haru without Summer Moko, that you're going to want to try to get this 150. That's your main goal. Now, what happens if you don't have Summer Moko? Who do you get to put in her place? Well, it comes down to a couple things. One is, do you have a sustain need? Is it a fight where you need a healer? In which case, as always, bring a healer, bring the one that makes the most sense for your account, whatever. And if you don't need sustain, and a lot of times your guild bosses you don't, this is actually a place you could bring Riddle or Leon. So these are both really good buffers. Leon is particularly good at giving you your crit damage boost, especially if you have his 5-star weapon. So it's a, great stat to chase through. He's also going to be increasing your attack. So you're getting that going on. And then for the Psy part, if I wasn't running a Summer Moko, this is a place I'd actually kind of consider Riddle. Now, this is before future units. Later on, you'll get like Wind Vast and stuff like that, and they get better. But as far as what you'll have when Haru comes out, so your Riddle is going to give you, additional things like damage up. She's going to give you additional attack. And so if you're not getting the attack from the EHR buff that translates for Haru herself, then you can get attack from other means like a Riddle, like a Leo. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else in particular that will have at this point. I don't think so. I'm just skimming through the characters there. Yeah, those are probably the two biggest ones, I would think, of our current roster off the top of my head. Let me know if you think differently. But those are places you can fill that attack gap and still get some like extra bonus damage or extra crit bonus damage. I don't know the math. I'd have to check it, but I would assume one of these two, either Leon or Riddle, would be the replacement for Summer Moko. But that's my thoughts. So definitively, no, you don't have to pull Summer Moko. You're not going to brick your account. Haru is still going to attack really well. But if you're not pulling her, like I said, just do what you can to get your ailment accuracy to 150. That is your goal. Period. Because that's going to give you that other piece down here, which is that extra 30% of crit damage. So that's my thoughts. Leave it in the comments. Let me know if you disagree, if you think that it's ridiculous to try to push for that 150. I think it's easier just to bring Summer Moko, and I'm going to pull for her, but I appreciate that currency can be limited. And if they do drop at the same time Summer banner, well, that's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky. Oh, actually, she works with Summer Closer too, by the way. So there's 3 units I can think of. With that, my friends, like and sub on the way out. If you got this far, you got value. So give me a little value, drop me a sub. And until our next video or live stream, please take care of yourselves.